Okay, so today we're doing Module 3, Lesson 14. And your learning goal says I can use mental strategies. That means I can think about in my head different things to think about that will help me add and subtract problems with multiple terms. A term is one of the numbers in an addition or subtraction problem. So if I have, for example, 1 plus 2, that has two terms. If I say 5 minus 3 minus 1, how many terms are there? 3. If I say 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 5/8 plus 6/7, how many terms are there in that problem? 4. So oftentimes problems don't just have two terms, right? Your most basic problems will have two terms, but we're in 5th grade and we're not basic. So we might come across problems with lots of terms. And sometimes we could just solve the first two terms first and then think about the third term and then think about the 4th term and 5th term, etc., right? But sometimes we can use strategies, we can think about things in our head that will make it a lot easier for us to solve multiple terms. Does that make sense? Very good. Does this problem, is it an addition problem, a subtraction problem, or a combination of the both? Addition. We only see addition signs. Okay. How many terms does this problem have? 4. So should we just do them in order? 2/3 and then 1/5 and then after that we'll add 1/3 and then after that we'll add 1 4/5? No. Talk to your table group. What do you notice that could help you solve this easier? When we look at this problem, we can see that there's basically two denominators. These ones are a denominator of 5, and then over here we have a denominator of 3. So maybe I could rewrite it. Because what property of addition lets me commute or move the terms around? Everyone? Okay, so I'm going to commute it so that my fractions that have a denominator of 3 are together, so I can think about those together. And my fractions that have a denominator of 5 are together so that I can think about those together. Hey, what do you guys notice? What's 2/3 plus 1/3? 1, okay. And then over here I have 1/5. And I have 4/5. What does that equal? 1/5 plus 4/5 is 1. And then I have a whole here, so what do I have there? 2. So I don't even need to do any work with LCDs or drawing rectangular fraction models. If I commute the terms, I can mentally figure out that the answer is 3 in my head. Does that make sense? Again, I'm going to stress that I cannot see what you're thinking about in your head. So if you were to only write 3, that's not going to help me see like if you understood the strategies. But if you commute them and show me that 2/3 and 1/3, you're going to think about those first. And then 1/5 plus 1 and 4/5, you're going to think about those next. And that equals 1 plus 2. Then I can really see, oh yeah, they get it. Does that make sense? So you want to write that part out. Be careful. When we subtract, could I say that this is the same thing as 1/2 minus 5 and 7/8 minus 1 and 1/2? Can we do that? No. When we subtract, the first number always needs to stay in the front. That's what you're starting out with. But do you guys notice, what's 5 and 7/8 minus 7/8? 5. So right away, those two, I can take care of it, and it becomes just 5. Then the rest of the problem, I have minus 1 and 1/2 minus 1/2. I can change the order around except for the first one. Now, if I'm going to take 1 1/2 away from someone, and then I'm going to take another half, how much am I taking away from that person altogether? Huh? If I take $1.50 away from Jithia, and then I take another $0.50 away from Jithia, how much money am I taking away from her altogether? $2, right? Because 1 1/2 plus 1/2 is 2. So do you see how altogether I'm taking away right here $2 or 2? Right? So then this problem becomes 5 minus 2, which is 3. So again, we can use mental strategies to make it a lot easier for us to subtract. It's interesting because right here, it's 1 1/2 minus 1/2. But how come I said it's the same as 2, which is 1 1/2 plus half? Go ahead and talk to your table groups. So when we find a missing term like this, our job is to figure out what term fits there. So let me show you what's happening. It's saying I have 14/3 plus something, I don't know what it is, plus 9/4, and all together, that is 8 and 11/12. So what do I do? How can I find what this missing term is? I have to take the total, 8 and 11/12, and I have to subtract 14/3, and I have to subtract 9/4, and then would that help me find the missing piece? Yeah. So let's do that first by finding the least common denominator. I know I have a 3, a 4, and a 12. What's my least common denominator, everyone? 12. Okay, so let's rewrite those terms so that they have a 12 in the denominator. What do I have to multiply 3 by to get to 12? 4. So I have to multiply this by 4/4. Now, does anyone know 14 times 4 in their head? No. So it'd be a lot easier to first convert this to a mixed number. 14/3, how many holes do I have in there? Well, how many thirds does it take to make one hole? 3, right? So do I at least have 3/3? Yeah. Do I have 6/3? Yeah. Do I have 9/3? Yeah. Do I have 12/3? Yeah. Do I have 15? Thank you, thirds? No. So how many holes do I have? 4. And how many fractions do I have left? 2/3. Okay. Now let's convert this one too, actually. How many fourths does it take to make a hole? 4, right? So do I have 4/4? Do I have 8/4? Do I have 12/4? So how many holes do I have? 2. And then how many fourths do I have left over? Okay. So now I can start converting. So I have 4 and 2/3. And as I said before, I need to multiply that by 4/4 to get it to be the denominator, right? So 4 and 2/3 times 4/4. What I like about converting it first into a mixed number is I don't have to worry about that whole number. That whole number is still going to be what whole number? 4. And what's my fraction going to be? 8 what? 8/12. Okay. And then 9/4 was the same as 2 and 1/4. I have to multiply that by what over what to get some 2 and some 12ths? Jithia? 3/3. So 2 and 1/4 is the same as 2 and how many 12ths?
3/12.
How many?
3/12.
Thank you. Okay, so as I said, I can take my total, 8 and 11/12, and I have to take away the first bit right now, which is 4 and 8/12. So what's 8 minus 4? 4. And what's 11/12 minus 8/12? 3/12. Okay. And now that's what I have left after I've taken away this one. So that means from here to here is 4 and 3/12. But now I need to take away this part too, which is 2 and 3/12. So I have to do 4 and 3/12 minus 2 and 3/12. Well, what's the whole number part? 4 minus 2 is 2. And 3/12 minus 3/12 is 0. So that means that my missing term here is what? 2. Do you see how drawing a tape diagram helps us figure out that we need to subtract what we already know? Yeah. Good.